She hadn't taken a step in 7 years. World-class doctors gave up. Machines failed. Her billionaire father lost hope. Then one man walked in, mud on his boots, mystery in his eyes, and whispered just 3 words, "Let me try." What happened next stunned everyone and changed everything. Alyssa Worthington had once danced through golden fields like the wind itself. At 10 years old, she was fearless, a gymnast, a dreamer, a child who could jump off tree branches and land like a feather. But everything changed that fall evening, when a drunk driver ran a red light. The accident shattered more than bones, it shattered futures. Alyssa's spine had been irreparably damaged. Doctors said she may never walk again, and for 7 long years, she didn't. Richard Worthington, her father, was the kind of man who could silence boardrooms with a glance, a tech magnate with a net worth north of $2.4 billion. Richard wasn't used to hearing the word no. He had built an empire from code, cracked Silicon Valley open like a walnut, but not even his power, influence, or unlimited bank account could restore Alyssa's legs. He flew in specialists from Germany, surgeons from Korea, even spiritual healers from Tibet. Nothing worked. The most cutting-edge treatments, robotic exosuits, AI neuromuscular mapping. Nothing brought back sensation below her waist. And Alyssa, once vibrant, became quiet, detached. Her smile, once electric, dimmed to a flicker. Then one strange morning, something unexpected happened. A nurse approached Richard in the hospital's VIP wing. "Sir, there's a man here asking to see you. Says he's here for your daughter." Richard frowned. "Who is he?" He didn't give a last name, just said he's a farmer. Richard almost laughed. A farmer? In his daughter's $5,000 a day hospital suite. This had to be a joke, but something in the nurse's tone gave him pause. It wasn't confidence, it was curiosity. Richard, exhausted from sleepless nights and meaningless meetings with experts, finally said, "Send him in." And in walked Elijah Boone. His presence was jarring. Muddy work boots, jeans torn at the knees, a flannel shirt that had seen decades of sun and wind. His hands were rough, calloused like bark, but his eyes were different, calm, steady, filled with the kind of peace that money couldn't buy. Elijah looked at Alyssa for a long moment before speaking. "You've forgotten your roots," he said gently. "That's why your legs don't listen." Richard blinked. "Excuse me." "I'm not here for you," Elijah replied. "I'm here for her. You're not a doctor. You're not even a therapist. Why should I allow you near my daughter? Because everything you've tried hasn't worked. Let me try my way. 1 hour. That's all I ask." Alyssa, intrigued, nodded. "Let him." That's how it began. Elijah didn't touch machines. He didn't ask for charts or scan results. Instead, he brought a small satchel filled with dried herbs, river stones, and something that looked like powdered bark. He sat cross-legged on the floor, closed his eyes, and hummed a melody so soft it could have been the breeze. He spoke to Alyssa's legs, not in commands, but in whispers. He told stories about seeds pushing through soil, about animals who healed themselves by lying in clay, about water remembering the shape of the rocks it passed over. The hospital staff thought it was nonsense, but Alyssa did. For the first time in years, she wasn't a patient, she was a participant in her own recovery. Day after day, Elijah returned. Sometimes he made her place her bare feet on soil he brought from his farm. Sometimes he placed her hands in cold river water and said, "Feel what the earth feels. Let it echo through you." Richard watched from the sidelines, skeptical but unable to ignore the change in Alyssa's energy. She was laughing more. She smiled when Elijah arrived. She asked questions. What does tree bark do? Why do roots move toward water? She was alive again. Then it happened. 6 weeks in, a tremble, just a twitch of her left toe. Richard dropped his coffee cup when he saw it. "Do it again," he shouted. Alyssa stared at her foot, focusing harder than she ever had. And then another twitch. The hospital erupted in whispers. Doctors ran new scans. "There's mild neurosignal activity," one of them stuttered. "Not enough for movement, but it's something." But Elijah didn't seem surprised. "She's waking up." From that day on, Alyssa's rehab sessions, once dull routines of failure, transformed into battles of will. Elijah combined his earthy rituals with light movement therapy. He taught her to breathe with the wind. The wind moves without legs. You can too. He had her sit in a garden of lavender and speak to the plants. At first it felt silly, but then something inside her clicked. In 2 months, she stood, with help, wobbling, crying. In 4, she took 3 unassisted steps. The media caught on. Billionaire's daughter walks again. Thanks to dirt, headlines buzzed. People called it a miracle, others called it quackery. One evening, a board member from Richard's company confronted him. You've become a distraction. Investors are pulling out. You're aligning your family name with a hillbilly magician. Richard looked at them, then at the video on his phone. Alyssa walking, arms outstretched, tears in her eyes. I'd rather lose shareholders than watch my daughter in that chair again. He resigned the next day. Elijah refused fame. He returned to his land. No interviews, no podcasts, just the soil. Alyssa walked into her high school graduation 6 months later, on her own. Every step was met with cheers, but she didn't look at the crowd. She looked at the sky and smiled. A year after that, she gave a TED Talk titled, What Roots Remember. She didn't speak about medicine. She spoke about connection to nature, to silence, to belief. Science said I couldn't walk, she said, voice steady. But Elijah said, let me try. And I did. She ended her talk with a photograph. Her and Elijah, standing barefoot in a cornfield. I am not a miracle, she said. I am what happens when someone finally listens. And the room went silent, before erupting in applause.